Well, I'm going to tell you a story, bedtime story. It's a story many of you know because the old stories are often the best stories. And it's a story about one of the beings who are pictured in the booklet that was handed out to you. And that being is also right behind us. And this is the story of Hanuman. It's interesting. I've been telling the Ramayana now for since 1970, I guess. That's 23 years. And recently, in the way the culture has become sensitized and awakened, it is very clear to me that the Ramayana is a very sexist book, which puts me in a peculiar predicament, because I don't feel those feelings of preference or difference. I feel the history of oppression. But I'm in the predicament that I feel that this story has incredible richness in it. And yet I really feel that it represents things in ways that aren't fully attuned to the way we are conscious about people, and it comes out of a certain cultural tradition. So at a recent retreat, I prepared the story of Savitri, the goddess who comes to Earth, and it's in the Mahabharata, and marries Satyavan, and then she, the goddess, does this incredible dance with death. And I used that at Omega, and it was okay, but I saw that I had a lot more work to do with it. It's a very deep story, and it's going to take me about a year to prepare it. So those of you that are concerned about the sexist aspect of the story, keep in mind that in a year, I will be in balance. Because it is, just makes me more comfortable to say that in advance so that you can not get caught in that, now that I've really caught you in it. The Ramayana, is the story of the exploits of Sri Ram. And Ram is the another aspect, another avataric aspect of the formless that comes into form. You have to know at the outset that from when formless starts to, the aspect of form that's closest to formless in Hinduism is the three faces of God, the three aspects, Brahma, Vishnu, Shiva. And you say, well, how long will it last? Well, these last about 400, anywhere from 250 to 400,000 years. They're big. I mean, it's not like it's going to go away tomorrow with the Aquarian Age. This is big stuff. So in each of the yugas, things are very different. In the Sat Yuga, which is the Yuga of truth, the bull of truth has all 4 feet on the ground. And then with each succeeding yuga, 1 foot of truth is raised from the ground until finally in the Kali Yuga, there's only 1 foot left of truth. And so there can be Watergate and all that stuff. And everybody can say, of course, everybody lies. But in the Sat Yuga, that would never happen. Everybody's word was true. So this story takes place in the second yuga, where it's beginning to corrupt a little bit, but it's still pretty far out, pretty high, pretty fair and good. Now, in this story, there was a very, very high yogi. And the reason these stories are such fun, the reason the stories of the great holy books are often such fun, and this particularly is an example of that, is because they work on so many planes of reality all at once. There's a storyline, and then there's a meta story, and then there's a story within the story, and then everybody represents symbolic things as well as real things. And there are just rich images for learning, for teaching. It's a teaching about Dharma, basically. It's a teaching about the way of things. And so in this story, there is a very high yogi named Ravana. And Ravana is, in that time, people could have rather eccentric body forms, and he was a demon, but he was a very high demon. I mean, like a demon would be somebody who lived in, say, urban New York. Somebody very much in the world, but still he had an incredible yearning for yoga, and he was very devoted to Brahma, the form of creation. And Ravana had 10 heads and 20 arms, and he was strikingly handsome. He had big mustaches on all his 10 heads. And so he did this incredible puja to Shiva, to Brahma rather, and he offered one of his heads each time he did this ceremony. Well, that gets Brahma's attention. And finally, when he had offered the 9 heads and he was about to offer the last head, that degree of devotion and yogic fervor, Brahma appeared and said, "Stop bugging me, what do you want?" And Ravana said, "I want power over the heavens and the nether realms and all the animals." And I mean, this was siddhis. This was the issue of spiritual powers. He wanted powers. That was the ego part of him still. And Brahma said, "Okay, you got it." Well, Ravana, who was based in by the way, if anybody gets too tired to stay and you want to go home, go. It's fine. Or just lie down and go to sleep. It's okay. Let's keep the doors open a little bit to keep hearing. Is everything okay? So Ravana lived, his base camp was Sri Lanka. And he had an incredible base camp there. But he started to just go around pillaging the lands. And he pillaged heaven because he had power over all the gods and goddesses in heaven, in the astral planes. And he did such a job of it. And nobody could do anything about it because he had this boon from Brahma. So all the gods and goddesses went to Brahma and they said, "Hey, you got to do something about this guy. He's ruining heaven." And Brahma said, "I can't. I gave the boon, but maybe Vishnu can help you," which is another face of the same thing. I mean, it's just, go see me around the corner. So they went to see Vishnu. And they said, "Vishnu, we got a real problem here. This Ravana and would you help us out?" And he said, "Yes, I'd really like to help you out because I'm into preserving things." And he said, when that Ravana asked for a boon, he asked for power over the heavens, the netherworlds, and the animals, but he forgot humans because he didn't consider humans worthy of anything. He thought they were kind of irrelevant. And so I'll tell you what, I'll help you out. I'll take birth as a human and I'll do in Ravana for you. They said, "Gee, would you?" He said, "It'll only take a moment. It's heaven time." And so now we got this is the early stage of the setting of the situation. Now down on earth, Dasaratha, who is a wise and wonderful king of Ayodhya, and he's been ruling Ayodhya for, well, I think he's about 60,000 years old or 100,000 years old. So he's been ruling for a long time. And he's tired. And the problem is that the kingdoms are passed down through the male heirs and he doesn't have a son. And he says to his preceptor, his guru, "I would like a son. Would you do a puja to get me a son?" And so, and Dasaratha has 3 wives. And the puja is done, and out of the fire comes the fire god Agni, and he hands Dasaratha a bowl which has in it dahi, yogurt. What is it? Amrit. Nectar. It's nectar, which is actually coming from Vishnu. And Agni tells Dasaratha that his wives should drink this, and he'll have a male child. So he gives his first wife half of it to drink, and then he gives the second wife a quarter, and then the third an eighth, and then the third another eighth. And then in proper time, there are 4 sons born. The first to Kaushalya is Ram, the next to Kaikeyi, which is Bharat, and then Lakshman and Satrugna are born to the third wife, Sumitra. Yeah. And everybody's really happy. Dasaratha's thrilled. And these kids are great. I mean, they are superb princes. They learn all the skills and archery and debate and calligraphy and I mean, they just know everything. And they're really good. They're really good. And so they grow up into teenagers, and they've taken birth. They're Vishnu. They're all different parts of Vishnu. You understand? But they have a veil over them, just like you do, that makes you think you're who you think you are. See, so, I mean, they think they're Ram and Bharat and Satrugna. They're not saying, hey, I'm Vishnu in drag. I mean, it's not like a conscious avataric incarnation. It's this because this is second yuga. And so the hermits out in the woods who are doing pujas come and they say, these demons are out of control and they're ruining our sacrifices. And they say to Dasaratha, could you loan us your sons to help us get rid of, because the high beings see who these people are. They say, look, these are Ram and this is all Vishnu. They can do it easily. Dasaratha said, they're so young. Do you have to take my sons? And they said, we know who your sons really are. Dasaratha said, well, I don't really, but go ahead, because it's my duty as a good king to let you do this. So the kids go off to the jungle and they get rid of all the demons in that jungle. And then in the course of their travels, Ram comes to Janaki's palace, and there Janaki's daughter Sita, who is really the daughter of the earth, is the most beautiful being. I mean, she's the earth goddess made manifest. And she is looking now for a husband. And King Janak has the sword, the bow, Shiva's bow, which nobody can even lift. And he has said, with Sita's consent, whoever breaks this bow will have Sita's hand. And all the princes from everywhere come, and they can't even lift the bow. I mean, they can't even lift one edge. And Ram, who's this young 15, 16-year-old, comes along and picks up the bow and strings it and, breaks it. And so he and Sita are wed, and all the other brothers wed the sisters, and it's a good scene. And they all go back with their wives to Dasaratha's place. And Dasaratha said, I'm glad you're back because I'm really tired of being king. And Ram is got half of Vishnu's seed, really. And he said, Ram, I really, I've loved you always. I love all of them, but I love you so much. Would you be king? And Ram says, Dad, anything you want, I'll do. And Dasaratha says, great, tomorrow you'll become king. And there's great jubilation and celebration in the kingdom because Ram is going to become king and Sita is going to become queen. However, now the plot must sicken, because the second, Bharat, the second brother, who is very, very devoted to Ram, actually the brothers ended up grouping so that Ram and Lakshman were very, very close, as were Bharat and Satrugna. But still, the brothers were very devoted, and Bharat was very devoted to Ram. Everybody loved Ram because he was absolutely essence, a dharmic person. So Bharat was off visiting his uncle. And Kaikeyi, who is the mother of Bharat, the second wife, she has a a woman's servant named Matara. Matara is got heavy karma, is all I can say. She's like got really dark stuff in her. And she goes to Kaikeyi and she says, "Are you gonna let?" She's crying. She says, "Are you?" And Kaikeyi says, "What are you crying for? Ram's going to be king. This is wonderful, and here's jewels and everything." And Matara says, "Hey, you don't understand. You're a complete. You're out of it completely. Don't you understand that when Ram takes over, he's going to get rid of Bharat and get rid of you, and Kaushalya is going to be the mother who's going to be in charge of the whole thing, and you're going to really get a bad deal." And Kaikeyi says, "What are you talking about? We all love each other." But Matra keeps poisoning her with this thought. And finally, Kaikeyi goes to see King Dasaratha, her husband. And actually, she goes to the crying room, and she's crying in the crying room. And somebody says to Dasaratha, "Kaikeyi's crying in the crying room." And Dasaratha goes there, and he says, "What's the trouble, Kaikeyi?" And she says, "Oh, my whole life's going to end. It's terrible." And he says, "What can I do?" She says, "Well, you promised me 2 boons, and there had been a battle earlier. I'm trying to cut down the stuff, but there's a lot, as you can see." Are you still with me? Okay. There was a battle earlier in which Dasaratha was wounded in battle and nearly lost his life, but Kaikeyi saved him and healed him. And at that time, he offered her 2 boons, which she had not yet collected. So she says to him, "My life is over. The only way you can save me is by giving me the 2 boons you promised me." Now, Dasaratha is a totally dharmic person. And if he promised a boon, that's that. It's not something like, "Well, that was then, but now let's renegotiate." It was like, this was a thing. He said, "Of course you can have the 2 boons." She said, "All right, the first boon is that my son Bharat will become king instead of Ram." And then, because she didn't want Bharat to have a lot of trouble, she said, "The second boon is I want Ram to go off into the jungle for 14 years. Dasaratha said, "Oh, don't do this. You'll kill me. I mean, I want Ram in as king." She said, "You either honor your boons or you're no king. You're no Dharma king." And he said, "Of course, I'll honor my boons." He called Ram in and he said, "Hey, Ram, I was going to make you king tomorrow. But instead of that, you're going to the jungle for 14 years. And Ram says, "Anything you say, Dad," because he's a perfect dharmic son. I mean, you do what your father says in those days. See, that's why it's the second yuga instead of the Kali yuga. Things don't work quite that way now. "Sure, Dad." "I'm going to the jungle right away." So, everybody, there's much gritting of teeth, and everybody's very uptight and all this. But Ram is going to go to the jungle the next day. So Sita comes. Lakshman, of course, is going to go with Ram because Lakshman's never separated from Ram, and he's going to go and protect Ram. And so Sita comes and she says to Ram, "I hear you're going to the jungle and we're not going to be king and queen." He says, "Yeah, that's the way it is." And she says, "Well, I'm going with you." And he says, "Oh, you can't go. I mean, there's snakes and stuff in the jungle, and it's dangerous, and you can't go there." She says, "Look, I'm your partner, and there's no second question. I'm going." And so he said, "Okay, you're very stubborn. We'll go." So the 3 of them leave. Ram, Lakshman, and Sita go off into the jungle. They put on bark dresses and clothing, and they go off to do 14 years in the jungle. And they build a thatched place, and it's really kind of neat, and everybody's really kind of happy there. I mean, he's doing what his father asked him to do. Bharat, when he comes back from visiting his uncle and finds what his mother has done, he's really pissed. And he goes to his mother and he says, "What did you do this for? You must be out of your mind." And he says, "I'm not going to rule this kingdom." And he goes running after Ram, charioting after him, actually. And he comes to where Ram's living in the forest, dwelling. And Bharat says, "I'm not going to rule. Come on back. This was all a mistake." In the meantime, Dasaratha died of a broken heart. That's the way it goes. So Ram says, I can't because I promised my father, and dead or alive, I got to honor my promise, and that's that because I'm a Dharmic prince. So you don't say that, but that's understood. So finally, Bharat is so distraught. Ram says, I'll tell you what I'll do. Here are my sandals. You take those back and put them on the throne, and then you can be the prime minister, and it'll all work. So Bharat says, okay, and takes the sandals and goes back. And the sandals sit on the throne, and when there's a decision to make, they wiggle in a certain way. And so he didn't break his vow because, I mean, he's just clever. So Ram and Sita and Lakshman are living in the jungle. Now Ravana comes. Ravana starts to hear about Sita because Sita is the most beautiful being in creation. She's the Earth Mother made manifest. And Ravana decides that although he has thousands of wives, as every demon, worthy demon would, he has heard about this Sita, and he would very much like to have Sita be one of his wives. So he talks to different counselors, and they say, hey, don't be out of your mind because she's married to Ram, and don't forget Ram is God. I mean, Ram's Vishnu, so don't screw around. But he can't think of anything else. He's got to have a relationship with Sita. So what he does is he's got a cousin or something like that, a cousin, relative, who's a magician. And he says, you got to help me out. And what I'd like you to do is turn yourself into a deer that's very desirable and get Ram away from Sita, and I'll steal Sita. So the cousin says, yeah, I think this is an unwise move. And see, it is an unwise move, obviously. Ravana is greedy to get the Shakti of the universe, basically. He wants all the energy of the universe, which is what Sita represents. She represents the energy force. And so Ravana's cousin comes as a deer with diamond in its forehead and jeweled body, and it's an illusion like the rest of us are, but it's very pretty, and it galumphs across in front of the camp where Ram and Sita are, and Sita says, "Oh, Ram, could you get me that? You know, like taste this apple, whatever the thing is. It was, could you get me that?" And Ram says, "Sure." And he goes off to get this beautiful deer, and he says to Lakshman, stay here with Sita and everything will be fine. When Ram is gone, now Lakshman is very hip. He's very, very, very protective and very wise. And he sees that this deer is an illusion. But Ram and Sita are in romantic love, and they're playing out that one. So you want the deer? Sure, dear. You know, and off he goes. But Lakshman says, hey, this is not cool. This is an illusion here somewhere. But who's listening, you know? So then Lakshman is there with Sita, and there is a scream from the jungle of help, and it's in Ram's voice. Because the minute the deer got Ram away, then the deer yells in Ram's voice, help, help. And Sita says, oh, Ram is in trouble, go help him. And Lakshman says, that isn't Ram's voice. And she says, what is it? You're not loyal? You're not going to do this? And she upbraids him terribly. And finally, he gets very irritated. He says, all right, I will go. And he said, but he draws a circle, a magic circle around her. And he says, don't step out of this circle till I get back. Promise me that and I'll go. She promises him and he leaves. Right after he leaves, now she's alone in the magic circle at the camp. Ravana comes in the form of a Brahmin priest, an old Brahmin priest. Mataji, Sabha. Points to his mouth, he's hungry. Yeah. Yeah. Chapati. Now, a dharmic wife must always receive the guest in the home as God. So she is trained from birth to be a perfect wife and a perfect house, the keeper of a home, because the women in India, the home is the center of the village life, and the woman is the center of that. And she has her rules, and her rule is always to feed. So she said, of course, of course, Baba. And she goes and prepares food, and she brings it to him. And as she hands it to him, he grabs her hand, which is outside the circle, and he pulls her out of the circle. Okay. And he calls forth his aerial chariot, puts her on it, and heads for Sri Lanka. This is a bad situation now. Okay. On the way there, she drops a number of ornaments along the way to leave a trail. And Jatayu, who is a very devoted vulture. He's very devoted to Ram.
He's a good vulture.
He's a good vulture.
Really dharmic vulture.
He's an absolutely dharmic vulture. He sees what's happening, and he goes to Ravana. He says, hey, cool it. That's God's partner, and that's not good. And Ravana says very arrogantly, get out of my way. And so they have a terrible fight. And Jatayu is almost mortally wounded, very badly wounded. And they go on, flying on to Sri Lanka. Ram and Lakshman come back to the camp, and there's no Sita. And of course, you can imagine. I mean, because Ram isn't busy being Vishnu now. He's busy being Ram, and Ram's wife has been stolen away, and he's freaked. And he starts to look for Sita. And in the course of the travels, he meets a monkey. He meets a monkey who turns out to be the picture in your book, whose name is Hanuman. Now, Hanuman is actually Shiva in drag. You got to hear this one, see? When Vishnu came down as Ram, Bharat, Lakshman, and Satrugna, Shiva and Parvati were talking up there in bed on top of Mount Kailash, and they said, we're not going to miss all the fun. Shiva said, I'm not going to miss all the fun. I'm going to take birth to help out Ram on this one, to help out Vishnu, really. Because this is another face. I mean, this is around the corner again from Brahma, Vishnu, Shiva. Okay. So at that moment, Anjani, this very, very high monkey, she is down by the river. And suddenly Vayu, the wind god, comes and he blows into her dress, and the next day Hanuman's born. So Hanuman is the son of the wind and of a very, very sacred high woman saint monkey, Anjani. Hanuman is not an ordinary monkey. Not in the least ordinary. He's a very extraordinary monkey. In fact, the first day she leaves him in a cave, and the first day he wakes up and he's really hungry, and there's no fruit, and nobody cares, and nobody's noticing him. And he looks up, and there's the sun, and he thinks, what a fruit, I want that. And he leaps up, and he creates such havoc when he gets near the sun that he's knocked down, and he gets a break in his chin.
And the name Hanuman, literally translated, means the one with the broken chin.
Okay. So now we have Vishnu meeting Shiva to beat up somebody who is working from a boon from Brahma. And these are all one God. All right. You just got to see the beauty of this little dance. That this is the way the one comes into good and evil and dark and light and all this stuff. It's the way the whole thing comes into form. You still here? Is it? I can speed it up and give you the end. And So Hanuman says he'd like to help because he said, look, I've been waiting to meet you all my life. Because Hanuman lived only to serve Ram. Now on earth, Hanuman is a monkey, but he is devoted to Ram. And as you will see, his devotion is so one-pointed. And here's the next teaching, that when your devotion to the one or to the formless is pure and total enough, you then are an instrument of all the power of the universe. It pours through you because you don't stand in the way, because you're so totally surrendered. You're like the hand. He's known as the breath of Ram. He's so close. Hanuman is known as the breath of Ram. Okay, so to shorten the story, Hanuman goes to the other monkeys and he enlists the help of the other monkeys and the bears. There's many sub-stories in this we'll pass over. And the bears join also with Jambavan as the bear at their head. And Ram and Lakshman instruct the bears and monkeys to go in the 4 directions to see if they can find Sita. But since everybody sort of knows in advance that Hanuman's going to be the one that's going to find Sita, Ram gives Hanuman the ring of his ring, because Sita will know that that's a true emissary when she sees that ring. It's in the photo. That photo that you have of Hanuman shows him with the ring in his hand, and I'll tell you more about what it shows also in a minute. Okay, so Hanuman goes to the ocean south with the monkeys and the bears, some of them, and they get there and they hear from the vulture world, that Sita's been taken over to Sri Lanka, and they want to go over to Sri Lanka, but there's a big body of water and they can't figure out how to do it. And someone will say, well, I can leap part way, but then I can't go the rest of the way. Finally, Jambavan says to Hanuman, look, don't you know who you are? You can leap there easily. Hanuman is under a curse that he doesn't know who he is. He says, oh, I can? Well, of course, then I will leap. And I must read you the leap. That's at least that I must read you. O King Ram, Hanuman is the son of the fast-racing, generous wind. There was dismay and faint sorrow, and it was time to be strong. Then, like a storm, Hanuman drove away low spirits. Like a light, he brought courage. In his mind, Hanuman had already crossed the sea and entered the demon city. He climbed one of the hills, this is in South India, to get firm ground under his feet. He began to fill up with power. He grew very large and heavy, and his tread pressed down the hill and crushed the cave of serpents. Hanuman's feet squeezed water from the hill. Rivers tumbled down, rock slides rolled, tigers ran off, and birds flew away. Hanuman stood on the hilltop. He held his breath and sucked in his stomach. He frisked his tail. He bent his knees and swung back his arms. Then, without pausing to think, he drew in his neck, laid back his ears, and jumped. It was grand. It was the greatest leap ever taken. The animals on the beach had never seen such a thing. They cheered Hanuman. The air burned from his passage. Red clouds flamed out of the sky, and Hanuman was far out of sight of land. The monkey was like a comet, pushing the sky from his way and bumping clouds aside. The wind roared under his arms and made the ocean pitch and roll. Sea spray rose and steamed up the sun. Beneath Hanuman as he went, the green salt water parted, and he could see the whales and fishes like people surprised at home. I love that image. Okay. So, Hanuman is crosses the ocean, and he goes through a number of adventures. He goes through one adventure. Here's the one adventure. The gods saw the son of the wind god sweeping along, and in order to test his extraordinary strength and intelligence, they sent Sarasa, a mother of serpents, who came near him and said, "The gods have provided me a meal today." On hearing these words, the son of the wind god said in reply, "Let me return after accomplishing Sri Rama's errand, O mother, and tell my lord the news of Sita. Then I will approach you and enter your mouth. I tell you the truth, mother, only let me go now." When, however, she would not let him go on any account, Hanuman said, "Then why not devour me?" She distended her mouth to a distance of 8 miles. The chief of monkeys grew double the size of her mouth. She stretched her mouth to a circumference of 128 miles. And the son of the wind god immediately took up a form covering 256 miles. Even as Sarasa expanded her jaw, there's an engineer's feet for you. Even as Sarasa expanded her jaws, the chief of the monkeys manifested a form twice as large as her mouth. When she further expanded her mouth 800 miles wide, the son of the wind god assumed a very minute form by which he entered her mouth and came out again before she could close it, and bowing his head to her, begged leave to proceed. She said, "I have gauged the extent of your wit and strength, the errand for which the gods dispatched me. You will accomplish all the work of Sri Ram, a storehouse that you are of strength and intelligence." She blessed Hanuman and she departed, and Hanuman joyfully resumed his journey. Well, there are many such adventures, which I won't belabor here because of the hour. Not because they're not all rich. And he beats up people and he does all kinds of stuff. And then he I mean, bad people. He doesn't beat up good people.
He's a dharmic monkey.
Dharmic monkey. Hanuman arrives at Sri Lanka and he makes himself into a very tiny little being, and he looks around for Sita and he can't find her anywhere. And then he sees on one doorpost the bow and arrow, which is the sign of Ram. And what is the sign of Ram doing in a demon stronghold? I mean, the demon stronghold is magnificent. It's described in vivid detail, with huge warriors wrestling and thousands of elephants and beautiful wells and lots of flowers. And everybody's really worldly. I mean, it's just... It's a combination of Paris and London and Los Angeles, and it's all that sort of image. And it's really incredible, intense. Hanuman's looking around, all he wants is Sita. And then he sees Ram's thing on the door and he can't imagine. And there's Vibhishan. Vibhishan is Ravana's brother, Ravana's good brother. See, Ravana has a number of brothers, and Vibhishan is a good brother who worships Ram. And Hanuman reads Vibhishan and he says, "I'm looking for Sita." And Vibhishan says, "She's in the Ashoka Grove." And Hanuman says, "How can you hang out here? What's it like?" And Vibhishan says, "It's not easy. I'll tell you, it's like the tongue between the teeth," which is a great image. It's like the tongue between the teeth. But I get by. I just keep Ram in my mind. And so Hanuman leaves and goes to the Ashoka Grove. The Ashoka Grove is where Ravana is keeping Sita until she will agree to become his wife. And he comes out and he's surrounded her with demonesses who are there to scare her. And she's sitting looking down at her own feet as Ram's feet. She's just thinking about Ram. That's all she's thinking about. And she's wasting away. Hanuman is really upset. He's in a tree as a little teeny figure, watching the scene. And just as he's about to talk to her, onto the scene comes Ravana with all his wives and all his court. And he says, "Sita, have you decided to become my wife?" And she says, "Comparing you to Ram is like comparing to the sun, to the reflection of the moon in a thimble. No, to a fly. What is it? To
a glowworm to the sun.
The glowworm to the sun. These are two different versions I'm putting together here. A glowworm to the sun." And Ravana gets furious. "You mean you're still hung up about that old hermit, that little hermit you were hanging out with? I mean, I'm a king. I'll offer you everything. I'll make you my first wife." And Sita says, "Listen, either Ram's arm or your sword will have my neck. That's it, Jack." And Ravana says, "Well, I'll tell you, I'll give you 30 days. because she's just won't budge. And he says 30 days. And if you don't do it in 30 days, if you don't agree to be my wife, I'm taking your life. Hanuman hears all this. So then Sita is there and she's crying and she feels, because now who Sita is symbolically is she is the devotee who has been separated from the guru. She is, because in Indian marriage, the wife serves the husband as the guru. And so what this is the disciple being separated from the form of God that you worship, and they're pulled apart. And it's like we feel when we feel yearning and separation. And she's feeling that. She's feeling isolated and lonely and cut off, and like God has forgotten her. Nobody cares about her, and she feels desolate. And Hanuman at this point drops the ring down, and she sees it's Ram's ring, and she thinks it's an illusion. And then he says, no, I am an emissary of Ram, and I've come to reassure you he hasn't forgotten you. And that he's going to come with some friends, other monkeys and bears, and he's going to take care of Ravana, and everything will be all right. Just keep cool. And she says, but are all the monkeys pygmies like you? Because he's this little teeny thing. And so he huffs and puffs himself up, and he turns into his golden mountain form, which she's looking up at, and she's, well, you've convinced me. I see that Ram isn't playing with a second-rate band here. So, and he says, Mother, and then she gives him a blessing, a beautiful blessing, which we will pass on tonight. And then he says, Mother, I'm very hungry, and this is the Ashoka Grove is the place where Ravana's best fruit was grown. And after all, this is a monkey. And he says, I'm really hungry. Do you mind if I take this fruit? She says, well, it's guarded by an army of demons, but knowing who you are, go take anything you want with my blessing. So he goes and he breaks the trees and gets the fruit, and he gets the army. They bring out the whole army, and they can't stop him. And he's throwing tree trunks at them and rocks, like trees like in the we saw today. He was lifting them and just throwing them at them and stuff like that and laughing. And finally, one of them had an arrow that had a boon in it from Shiva. And it would come
and Hanuman was Shiva.
Yeah, Hanuman Shiva. And so the boon comes down, and it winds, the weapon winds Hanuman in a rope, which wouldn't hold Hanuman, except that the rope is the boon from Shiva. So that Hanuman doesn't want to dishonor the boon, so he lets himself be caught, because that's all part of the story. He has to, or the story wouldn't work. So Hanuman is then brought to... Hanuman is brought to Ravana's court because he's been wiping out Ravana's best army. Ravana says, who are you? And Hanuman said, I'm an emissary from Ram, and I've come to tell you to give back Sita. And we have a great guru in this monkey, I see, says Ravana. And Ravana just laughs hysterically. Ho, 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 ho. And Vibhishan, who's Ravana's brother, is in court and says, hey, Ravana, you're making a mistake. This is really God's wife. This is the Shakti. Let her go, because you can't hold the Shakti. You're just a being. You can't hold it all. And Ravana is so arrogant. He's like Nixon was at the height of his megalomaniac power. I mean, it's like, I can do anything. I can lie, cheat, steal, do anything because I've got all the power of the universe. And Vibhishan says, well, and Ravana says, let's kill this monkey because, he's a fool. And Vibhishan says, and the counselors say, Ravana, it's really bad to kill an emissary. I mean, it's just not good statecraft. You could maul him and mutilate him a bit, but you can't kill him. So Ravana says, all right, a monkey's very fond of his tail, so take his tail and burn it, set it afire, because that'll really upset everybody. So they wrap some rags and oil around the tail, but what Hanuman does is he keeps making the tail longer and longer and longer, and they use every rag in the city. I mean, they're just wrapping and wrapping and wrapping. Finally, when they set it on fire, he lets go of his bonds because he's fulfilled the dharmic responsibility, and he goes up with his burning tail and he lights the whole city on fire. And it's terrible. I mean, people are having it's just scary. All the demons are upset. And what they say is the women all miscarried, which is to show you how scared everybody was. And then Hanuman washes his tail off and goes back and says to Sita, I'd take you back myself, but I wasn't given orders to do that, and I'm a dharmic monkey, and I can't do that, but Ram will be along soon to get you, so stay cool. Sita says he better hurry because I'm going to be done in by Ravana soon. Hanuman says he will, and Hanuman flies back to the monkeys and bears who have almost given up hope, and when Ram meets Hanuman, it's another one of those scenes that's just breathtaking. Of Hanuman at Ram's feet, Hanuman having done this incredible act of reassuring the devotee, reassuring us that God has not forgotten us. That's basically what Hanuman serves as. Ram says, okay, let's go, let's save Sita. The monkeys and the bears take off and they go to the ocean edge, and then the question is, how are they going to get across? And they go, and Ram asks the ocean if it would help, and the ocean doesn't answer, which is really bad form. And so, since Ram is God, Ram shoots an arrow into the ocean to wake it up a bit, and then the ocean comes and says, look, I'm supposed to be like this, sort of a little non-responsive, so don't get upset. I really want to serve you. What do you want? And he says, well, I really need to get across you to do this little errand. And the ocean says, well, you have two monkeys in your crowd, Nila and Nala, who have a boon that when they touch a rock, it'll float. So Ram said, thank you very much to the ocean. And then Nila and Nala came and they kept touching rocks, and they built a bridge with these rocks across the way. And everybody helped. Even the little chipmunks came out, and they'd roll in sand and then come out and shake and let the sand get in. And at one point, the chipmunks got very upset because the big monkeys and bears kept shoving the chipmunks aside. And the chipmunks went to Ram and they said, this isn't fair, we're helping too, and why are you persecuting us this way? And Ram reached down and he stroked their back, and that's why they have those little stripes down the back. That's okay. So, Ram and all the Mishpocha cross the ocean now, and they're ready to take on Ravana, who's up there arrogant with his 10 heads and 20 mustaches and 20 arms and laughing gleefully. And he's about to be done in by God, but he doesn't, he's just too arrogant to see that. And so the armies start to clash, and there's incredible illusion in the dance and false armies. And it's really, there are 4 versions of this story, and each one is more outrageous than the last. It's so far beyond Steven Spielberg that this story is so powerful in Indian culture that when they made a television version of the Ramayana, it played on Sunday mornings at 9:30 to 10 or something like that. And every Sunday for a year, when that was on, the trains all stopped in the stations, and they had television monitors in the stations, and everybody in India just stopped to watch that. Governments, everything stopped. So at one point in this battle that starts to rage, this wild battle, in illusion, the monkeys, many of them are killed, and Lakshman is wounded, and that really freaks Ram, because Lakshman is such a devoted brother. And so the wise preceptor says, well, I'll tell you, there's an herb up in the Himalayas. This is way down now, this is over in Sri Lanka. There's an herb up in the mountains that could cure Lakshman if we get it soon enough. And so they need a kind of a UPS, some quick thing.
And they say to Hanuman, look, you can fly, you go get it. And Hanuman says, of course I'll go. And Hanuman goes up to the mountain, and he goes to get the herb, but he gets to the mountain, and he looks at the mountain, and he can't remember which herb it is, because he's a monkey. And so he lifts up the whole mountain and brings it back. And so Hanuman is often shown as holding a mountain flying through the air, and that's the healing herbs. And therefore, he's like the power of healing is one of his things. He's also, by the way, the Ishtadev, or the form that is on all the army flags in India. He's the symbol for the mascot for the army. The herb heals Lakshman and all the other monkeys, and all the good guys are happy, and the bad guys are getting wiped out. And finally, it comes down to a battle between Ram and Ravana, and it's getting really close. And I want to read you one thing. I don't know how many I've lost, but what the hell? I'm happy here, and that seems to be important too.
You know, this story is thousands and thousands of pages, which has been interpreted basically by him in this version. When it's done in India, it's sung, and it goes on for 18 hours a day, and it takes 60 days to sing it. That's the full story, and you're getting it in an hour.
Okay, so this is now the night before the battle between Ram and Ravana. And Ravana climbs to the parapets of his castle, and he's dancing in the dark, and he's just brilliant. I mean, he's an incredible being, Ravana. He's extraordinary. He's not just ego. He's also an incredibly high yogi. And fiery sparks stream downward from his arms. In the wind, his 20 waving arms opened and closed like the petals of a graceful flower. Blue flames shimmered round his form. Electric thunders crackled bright in his long, loose hair. And Ravana looked out at Ram and the animals as though to confuse them, as though they were already dead. Then Ravana clapped all his hands and stamped his feet 3 times and ended his dance. It was full night. The wind fell and was gone, and the worlds were empty of sound. Ravana disappeared from view. Then, as he came down the winding stairway inside the tower, the Demon King met Time, waiting for him there. Time, wearing a body so shriveled and old that he looked even dead when he moved. The way was too narrow to pass, and Ravana had to stop. "Welcome, Ravana." Time looked up and grinned happily. "Now at last your life is over, and you must pay me for the sins of a lifetime. You're about to die, and now for all eternity hell waits for you. And even your memory will be lost in endless years of silence. For your great wrongdoing, I have fallen in beside you all unseen, moving where you move, waiting in your shadow for the moment. How have you eluded me so long?" "Indeed," said Ravana, "I smile at your folly." Time answered, "Oh, do you think so, Ravana? Do you believe, Demon King, that I only control others? That time will never rule you? I'll have the last word. I'll humble you and kill your spirit. I'll press loneliness into your heart and chill your bones. There is no return." Ravana laughed. "You little liar." "What? You stole Sita and you'll pay." "You're the thief, not I," said Ravana. "For a few moments' pleasure, you take whole lives in payment. Death and misery are your good friends, but you yourself are unreal. You do not exist. You cannot steal from me." "Do you know who I am?" cried Kala, the god of time. "You're a fraud," said Ravana, "and you know it." "Why, you're not looking so well yourself," Ravana smiled. "May you feel worse tomorrow." Time said, Ravana, you're mad. There's no help for it. You're doomed. All the good times are gone by. Things can never be still. All must change and die. It will be as though you had never been born. Time will pass, Ravana. Time will pass. We know better than that, said the Demon King. Love is eternal, and we are beyond your reach. See, he's saying, I was in love with Sita, and love transcends time, is basically. Just a moment, don't be absurd. You don't believe those old stories, do you? Said Time. I believe them just enough, said Ravana. This time you've made a mistake. You've wrongly faced Ravana, who has gambled his life for love, and always will, I guess. All loss of love or life is a lie, old age is an illusion, and only bad things perish. Really, I fail to see what. I'd forgotten you had that problem, smiled the Demon King, but I must be on my way. My time is far too valuable to waste on anything but daydreams. Be careful, turn and go back away from Ravana, who will fight and die for love, for good love never dies. How'd you find that out? Stand aside, Time. Pretend to rule styles and fashions if you will, but don't talk of being over me. You're but a poor slave yourself. Then Ravana touched Kala, but lightly with one hand, and stood straight again. Time started to sweat. He sneezed and looked around. His voice cracked when he spoke. Why, it's all dusty. Everything here, it's all covered with dust. Ravana stood with all his hands on his hips as he watched time fade and vanish with a puzzled look, ever still trying in vain to say something more. Ravana stood on the empty stair. We'll be done in about 3 minutes. Battle starts. Incredible battle. I mean, you got to cut off all the heads, and it's a whole thing. But I mean, Ram's going to win, obviously, because that's the game. But so the battle is over, and Ram wins. And and then Ram goes and they get Sita, and she's really happy. And Sita and Ram get on the chariot and they go back to Ayodhya. And I mean, it's really happiness city. The people are happy. Everybody's happy. Bharat's happy. The sandals are happy. Everybody's happy. The whole thing is very happy. And just, I've just got to give you one more little teeny thing, and then you can go to bed. Imagine. Hanuman was hanging out now with Ram and Sita and all in the palace, and it was all very beautiful. And Hanuman came bounding down from the sky. He was just floating around, and he hit the ground with a thud like a thunderstorm. He was close to Ram, smiling at him, laughing and gay. Oh, Hanuman, said Ram. My king. Hanuman knelt before Ram. Rama said, as long as men shall speak of you, you will live on earth. And by the way that has been interpreted is that whenever the Ramayana is told, like tonight, Hanuman is present. And often he comes in the form of a crazy person or a very ragged person, somebody that you wouldn't expect to be Hanuman. So I don't know who you are. Someone in here isn't who they think they are, or isn't who we think they are. No one can equal you, said Ram. Your heart is true, your arms are strong, you have the energy to do anything. You have served me faithfully and done for me things that couldn't be done. It's nothing, said Hanuman. I'm your friend, that's all. Ram wore a rare golden bracelet set with gemstones, inherited from the wealth of the solar kings from ancient days. He said, best of monkeys, take this as my gift, and gave it to Hanuman. Hanuman snatched the bracelet from Ram and started to turn it over and around in his furry paws, looking closely at it. Then he bent and he broke it. He twisted the gold and pulled out the jewels. He bit down on the priceless gems and broke them like nuts and carefully searched over the pieces, looking everywhere for something. Ram asked him, "Monkey, at a time like this, why are you still so difficult?" Hanuman answered, "Lord, though this bracelet looked expensive, it was really worthless, for nowhere did it bear your name. What do I want with anything plain?" Vibhishan sniffed at that. That's the old brother of Ravana, who's now part of Ram's court because he's the good guy that came over. He says, "Then I can't see what value life has to you, monkey. Why don't you destroy your body as well?" Then with his sharp fingernails, Hanuman tore open his breast and pulled back the flesh. And see, there was written again and again on every bone in fine little letters, Ram, 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 Ram. Ram put down the grass he held, and with his 2 hands he pressed together Hanuman's parted flesh, and the wound over his beating heart came together, leaving no scar at all. Rama drew off his hand his broad, gleaming gold ring that said Rama, the ring that Hanuman had carried to Sita. He put it into Hanuman's wet, blood-stained paw and gently closed the monkey's fingers over it. Who is this monkey, Hanuman? Ram has let him loose in the world. He knows Ram, and Ram knows him. Hanuman can break in or break out of anywhere. He cannot be stopped like the free wind in flight. Hanuman can spot a tyrant. He looks at deeds, not words, and he'll go and pull his beard. Disguises and words of talk cannot confuse a mere wild animal. That monkey will break the handsome masks of evil kings. Hanuman will take your sad tunes and use it to make a happy dance.